Hello and welcome to Lisa T Creations. I'm the Lisa behind the Lisa T Creations. If you're new here, I am so glad you joined us today. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm glad you're here as well. And so today, if you watched my last video, it was how to make the badge holder part. Today's video, we're going to learn how to make this beaded lanyard to go with the badge. So keep watching and we'll learn how to make that lanyard. Let's talk about the tools and supplies you're going to need for this project. The first tool, if you have it available, is a design board. Or if you don't have a design board, you can use a piece of terry cloth and some tubs for the smaller beads. I'm using a design board because it's easier. You're also going to need some pliers. I'm using crimp bead pliers because they have a special tip on the end that makes it easier to apply the crimp beads to the wire. But you can also use a set of regular pliers because you're going to need those regular pliers anyway, just to ensure the crimp covers are on there good. And then you're also going to need a set of flush cutters. Now flush cutters have a special tip on them and this special tip ensures that it doesn't leave burrs on the jewelry wire when you cut it. You're going to need some findings for this. I am using 7-strand bead along 0.46 millimeter wire in bright. You can use whatever you have available. For this project, I'm using a toggle clasp, but again, you can use whatever kind of clasp you have available. You're going to need 2 6mm jump rings to attach the toggle clasp. You need 2 wire covers, 2 crimp beads, and 2 crimp bead covers for this. Now I am choosing to put a bail on this to attach the lanyard clip to. So this is my bail. You also need an 18 gauge jump ring to attach the lanyard clip to the bail. For the beads, you're going to need some 6.0 glass seed beads. I am using the silver lined green for this. They're just 6.0 beads. You're going to need 2 different colors of 11.0 beads, and I am using the copper and the emerald on this. And then you are going to need 2 different colors of 4mm glass bicones. I am using green and pink for this. And then you're also going to need 26. I'm using faceted round glass beads. These are a 6mm bead. You need 26 of this color. You also need 26 of another color. You can use whatever 6mm bead you want. I am using some acrylic textured beads for my project today. And that is pretty much what you're going to need for this project. Now you can substitute any of these. You don't even have to use the sizes of beads that I use for this project. I am just using these because I pre-tested this and I know it will fit and make at least a 32-inch lanyard when it's all put together. So you choose whatever beads and findings that you feel comfortable using. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is set your design up on your design board. And there will be a gap here and a gap at the top. Now this is our starting point, and you're going to start here and work your way down to the middle. And at the middle, we are going to put a section of beads in there for this bezel, so it will fit through the hole in the bezel. And so once you have that set up, you'll be ready to bead. But also notice that for the smaller beads, I left them in little piles on the side rather than these, because I found this, leaving them here, works a lot better than putting them in the cups. So the pattern, once you have your design set up, you can begin beginning. So I wanted to show you that I have put a bar and loop closure on this, and I did that deliberately because this jump ring will give in an emergency a lot faster than the beading wire I'm using and to make this with. And that is a bit of concern when it's a lanyard, so you want it to break away easy. And so the pattern I am choosing, to begin with, I am starting out with 3 11-0 green seed beads, and then I'm using an 11-0 bronze, and then 2 11-0 green, a bronze, green, bronze, green. And then I start with the 4mm bicone, the green bead, another 4mm bicone, and then a green, bronze, green in the 11-0s, and then a 4mm bicone in pink, the pink round, and another 4mm bicone. And then in between, it's going to go green, bronze, green in the 11-0. And then I'm just going to start repeating that pattern all the way down to the end. Well, all the way till you get to the middle. There should be 14 of these pink rounds before you get to the middle. And then for the middle, to make room for this bezel, I'm going to go an 11-0 in green, bronze, and green, and then 3 of these 6-0 beads in green, to make sure that this lanyard, or this bezel, fits on the lanyard easy. So once you have a good idea of what kind of pattern you are going to use, and then you can start beading. So one of the most difficult parts of this project is putting on the crimp bead. So you start with the crimp bead, first, and that's what it's going to look like when it's on. And then the next step is to put on the crimp bead cover, or the wire cover, and this is what the bottom of that looks like. I'm going to put that wire in one side, over the top, and through the other side. And doing it in front of the camera is a little awkward. But once you have it on, it should look a lot like this. And then you're going to put the end of your beading wire through your crimp bead and pull both of those down so they look like this. Now, if you have a pair of crimping wires, the next step is, do you see this where that little edge is right there? You want to put your crimp bead on top of that. and then just squeeze. And it should look like this. And now you're going to take the round part at the top and squeeze it again. I'm going to do that twice because I don't think I got it the first time. And then once you have done that, test it to make sure it's tight enough and it didn't break in the process, because sometimes they do. And in this case, we're fine. And I did forget to bring my wire cutters in here, but the next step would be to cut that off. So I'm going to pause the video and go get my wire cutters. Okay, so the next step is you want to cut the little tail off flush with the crimp bead. So I'm going to do that. So this is what you're left with. Now the next step is to apply the crimp bead cover. So it's very fiddly. So I'm going to hold it with crimp bead pliers. And the trick is you want to get that crimp bead centered in the middle, just like it is here. And then you're going to take your crimp bead pliers and close that loop, which, as you can see, it can be a little fiddly. As you cannot see, anyway, it's going to be a little bit fiddly to close that crimp bead cover. It's a lot easier to do when you're not trying to do it on camera. But you just want to make sure that that gap is closed. And so it would look a lot like that. So now you are actually ready to start beading. So we have this end on. It's going to work like a stop bead to keep all the beads on the wire. Okay, to start the actual beading process, you're going to pick up two green 11-0s. One bronze 11-0. Two more greens. Bronze. Two more greens. Another bronze. That one don't have a hole. Okay, let's try this again. Alright, and then the last two green 11-0s. And when you pull them all the way down to the end, it should look like this. Come on. There we go. It should look like this. Okay, now we're going to start doing the big beads. And you're going to start at the very end, and that would be with one 4mm green bicone, one 8mm green round, and another 4mm green bicone, and then you're going to do one 11-0 green seed bead, one bronze seed bead, and one green. And you're going to do that between each set of the big beads. So this is what it looks like right now. Okay, and now we're going to do one 4mm bicone in pink. One pink round. And one pink bicone. And then one green 11-0. One bronze 11-0. And green 11-0. And then we start with the next green 4mm. One 8mm round in green. And then 4mm bicone in green. So you're going to repeat that process until you have all 14 of the pink rounds on and pink bicones on the strand. And I'll meet you back here when I have that done to show you the next step. Okay, so when you have all 14 of the pink beads on, you have reached the center of the lanyard. So what you're going to do now is pick up one 11-0 green, one 11-0 bronze, another 11-0 green, and then 3 6-0 greens. These are the larger beads. And you can repeat that pattern on the other side and do 1 11-0 green, 1 11-0 bronze, and 1 11-0 green. So when you slide all of that down to the center, what you have is something that looks like this. Okay? Alright, so before you go any further, the next step is to add the bail. So if you're using a bail like mine, it has a hole in the center. You're just going to thread that. You're just going to thread that onto your jewelry wire. And it's going to sit on top of the beads that you just added. Okay, and so now you're just going to repeat the process for the other green and pink beads the same way you did the other side. So it's going to be 1 4mm pink, 1 8mm faceted round, another 4mm pink, and then the 11-0 green, 11-0 bronze, and 11-0 green. And you would just repeat that pattern all the way till you've added all the beads. So when I have that finished, I'll come back and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so once you have all 14 of your larger beads on and you've gotten to the end, so we're going to repeat this where we started, and we're going to go 2 green, a bronze, 2 green, a bronze, and then 2 green. So I'm going to do that right now. Or maybe that's actually copper. I've been saying bronze, but it's actually copper. Okay, so now is a really perfect time to go back and check your work and make sure that you followed your pattern throughout the whole strand. So stop the video and double check your work to make sure you followed your pattern, because this is after we do this next step, you would have to start all over again and cut the wire. And so the next step is to make sure that your beads, you don't want to, okay, drop the camera. So you want to go and double check and make sure you've stayed in pattern and push all your beads down to the end. you don't want to put it so tight that they kind of buckle like that. You do, but you want to take most of the slack out. It can still have just a tiny bit of give, but make sure all your beads are in a row. And then the next step is you're going to put on your crimp bead. And my crimp bead is right there. Let's see how tiny that crimp bead is. And put on your crimp bead. And then put on your wire guard. I like to use wire guards because then the jump ring will not fall out of it. And as you can see, I have a lot of extra jewelry wire, and I would rather have too much than not enough. So you're going to pull that down, give it just a little tiny bit of space there. Crimp bead went on top of that. So now you're going to put the tail through the crimp bead. Not sure if you can see that very well. Just put the tail through the crimp bead. And man, it did all this curly Q stuff, so it's going to be a pain to get it through there. Okay, finally. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that. You want just a tiny bit of space. And then squeeze real hard. And then squeeze again with the round part. Alright, there we go. Now that's on there. So we need to make sure that it didn't break. And it stays in there. And it looks like it's secure. So we're going to cut that tail off. Flush with the crimp bead. Just like that. And then put on our crimp bead cover. This can be a little tricky to do. And then close it up. Alright, now we have that end finished. And so now we got to decide which one is the left side and which one is the right side. And so when we have our bezel facing this way, this side would be the left side and this side would be the right side. You're going to put the bar on the right side and the loop on the left side. And then to do that, we are going to use these jump rings. Now on my original I used real heavy gauge jump rings, but for this one I'm going to use a little bit smaller jump rings. I don't think you really need the heavy gauge to attach that. You're going to split your jump rings apart like this, and then slip it through the wire guard, and then add the loop, and then close your jump ring back, and voila, you have your loop attached. Now we can repeat that process to attach the bar. So just want to twist them apart rather than pull them apart. Put it through the hole in the wire guard, and then put it through the hole in the bar, and then twist it closed. Okay, we're almost finished. We have one more step. And as you can see, it will slip right through there, just like that. And wear really comfortably on the back of your neck. Alright, so we want to come back down here to our bail. And the last step is to attach the clip. So to do that, we're going to open the jump ring, attach the clip to the jump ring. So let's like this. And then we are going to loop this through the hole in the bail, just like that. And then close our jump ring. Now it's pretty much your preference how you want this to sit. If you want the opening to be at the back or the front, that part is strictly up to you. But there you have it, a lanyard holder, or a lanyard for your badge. Okay, if you made it this far, I thank you so very much for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I had a lot of fun making it. I wear mine every day, and the ones I've made in these 2 videos should be up in my shop pretty soon. And as always, I thank you for your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next video.